I'm not used to reading off a script. This is gonna be hard. This is gonna be really hard. There's a certain reality you have to come to once you've made TTRPG content for long enough. And that's that there isn't anything you can talk about that other people haven't already talked about prior. Now, this is an issue with most genres of content, which I will admit, but the reason I put it here is because the topic of metagaming is good or bad has already been discussed plenty. Most people who have been in the scene for a while know where metagaming has its place and where it should be left on the wayside. So why am I discussing it? Well, with that being said, sometimes an example comes along that is so perfect and so genuinely unique that I almost feel like it's worth revisiting the topic just to show that there is always something new to learn from something even when we don't realize it. And for this particular case, I'm discussing Critical Role's most recent Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom one-shot. Now, this one-shot already made a lot of sense and had me extremely excited, of course, because, well, Matthew Mercer is the voice of the main antagonist of the game in the first place. But two, I've been playing a lot of this game for my new second channel and the new Twitch channel. Links in the description. And due to this fact, I already had a deep appreciation for the game. Add on to this the fact that I have been running a game already heavily inspired by its predecessor, Breath of the Wild, for almost 3 years now, and, well, let's just say it's probably pretty clear why I was very happy to see these titular nerdy-ass voice actors tackle a one-shot set in the world of Hyrule. And the one-shot is fun and with plenty of ridiculous, goofy moments and absurd characters. It has a beautiful translation of game mechanics to, well, TTRPG game mechanics, and it's an incredibly fun, just all-around romp, and it uses the classic sound effects that we all know and love in an amazing way.
8.
8 with an 8. You cook the meal without issue.
That's not particularly what I came to discuss today. No, I want to discuss metagaming and its merits in a strangely unique method, which basically is summed up with the concept of a pre-understood conception of a world. See, in most games, we either use a homebrew setting or a pre-written module, which, let me be clear, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with doing those, and in fact, in most cases, I myself use homebrew worlds. The issue with them, however, does arrive that in order to get a certain amount of investment in your world, you are required to be able to translate new information to the players in a manageable way, and that can be absurdly difficult sometimes. From political structures to economical, to social constructs, to literal mechanical construct. The point is, explaining an entire world to players so they can be fully invested and ready to go is a chore and a half. And while sometimes it is truly the most fun part of being a game master, sometimes I just want to let the players kick down the door, find the dungeon, and fight that goddamn dragon. And this, however, leads into a situation where sometimes metagaming can be a good thing. Because in the case of Critical Role's most recent one-shot, I have never seen a group of players more ready to invest into a world in my life. From simple stupid things such as the Goron Dink, who was just a hilarious parody from the legendary hero Link himself.
Only the way! Huh?
And I'm running, but I'm also tucking and rolling every 2 feet for no reason. Yeah.
I hear this is a faster way to get there!
My attention was elsewhere. So when I turn around...
I'm rolling down the hill right now!
And I notice
toward the enemy!
Very dangerous monsters. I will suddenly start loading my bow and arrow, chasing after you.
Easy enough to do. You're getting quite a bit ahead of the troop, and also the element of surprise is entirely lost as all 3 of these assault foes go.
To absurd stories made up by Emily Axford that already had in-depth knowledge of the world, which let her play the well-traveled construction worker she dreamed of being, even if it was ridiculous.
So one time we were building on the lightning fields. You ever been to the lightning fields? So we're building a really dangerous place to have a bunch of construction equipment, right?
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. It's a terrible build, okay? And, you know, we were just building some jerk's second house, so morale was low. But, you know, come third meal break, we were getting creative. Your morale was low. I took a bunch of meat, stuffed it into some metal, lightning came down. Bing, bang, boom.
Hot dogs.
Delicious hot dogs. Delicious
I knew
hot
where this story was going.
right? So I guess the moral of the story is sometimes proximity to danger can be delicious.
I remember when the shop started selling hot dogs. You're the inventor of the hot dog in Hyrule?
Whoa,
Yeah.
you're famous.
Yeah, I invented hot dogs. Yeah, I invented hot dogs.
Sounds like canon lore to me.
And of course, all of this was because, well, everyone was already a massive fan of the world. They had been dumped into this world they were already excited to jump into, leading to immediate knowledge of everything that was going on and an instant desire to invest full force into something they were deeply familiar with.
I'm glad to be here.
Happy to have you.
I've never played a Zelda game. I'm so excited. Just kidding. My entire tattoo is Zelda.
Now, I'm aware that so far what I've mentioned isn't necessarily metagame. It's just pre-world knowledge. It's just knowing what's going on. It's a group of players that know what's happening in the world they're playing in and therefore have all the necessary knowledge they need to dive into the story, but that's only a small portion of what I'm discussing here. Because using a basis of knowledge everyone is familiar with in order to build off of does, in some parts, encourage everyone to metagame just a tiny bit. Whether it's the players actively clearly engaging in the mechanic of the Zonai machines, despite the fact that their characters really wouldn't be that confident in such a brand new force in the world, or whether it was characters like Emily Axford's, who were clearly pulling on knowledge from her time playing the game to make up aforementioned absurd stories. There are things that could be considered metagaming, and all of these could be considered metagaming, but in the case of this one-shot, all they did was actively encourage the entire group to have fun diving into the world head first. And yeah, I'm willing to admit that this could be seen as pretty specific to just this one-shot, because like, The Legend of Zelda World is really fun to dive into, of course, but that's just that. It's a very specific example of one world. Or is it? Let me ask you a question. When you're playing D&D and you begin describing the rumbling caverns and the quaking floors, when you start to describe the breath so hot that the air itself is burning the skin of the characters, when you describe the scraping scales of iron coming down the hallway, when you say the word dragon, what do your players do? How do they react? My guess is if they have any idea of what a dragon is, there's excitement, anticipation, worry, and most certainly some concern. And these are all emotions that are associated with the fact that there is a goddamn fire-breathing dragon coming to fight them, and they'll all have to roll initiative. And notice I specifically said players, not characters. I described the response of the players. Because the truth is, regardless of whether your characters understand the influence and terrifying presence of a dragon, the players will, because of meta knowledge. And yes, in some ways that is straight up metagaming, but at the same time, doesn't that meta knowledge make the game that much more exciting? Doesn't it communicate something you'd never be able to? You don't want to have to tell them to be in awe. You don't want to have to tell them to be terrified. Any description or explanation of this majestic and terrible beast and its massive power is only going to compound and amplify the feeling that will already be there without any doubt because they already knew what it was. This is where the essence of why meta-knowledge and metagaming is important to running an impactful story. In understanding that when communicating something in the game, your goal is not only to communicate this information to the characters so they can act, but also the players. It is also to communicate to the players so that they too may understand more of not just what is happening in the games, but how this story is meant to unfold moving forward. A dragon is a dragon. It's not to be ignored. Whether it is something the players reason with, whether they slay it, whether it is something they manage to somehow sneak around, they know, due to the meta-knowledge of what a dragon is, that this is here because it is important. And regardless of how they choose to try and move past it, it's going to have some impact on the game because the narrative says that it is too big to be avoided. A dragon is in the title of the game. The meta-knowledge of the situation informs how the players can further invest in the story. And that investment, that understanding, is what creates those incredible moments of tension, excitement, and immersion in the game. When the players know the significance of a certain enemy, a location, or an event, they can make informed decisions. They can react in ways that align with the world's lore and truly feel like the weight of their choices matter and have legitimate weight. Imagine a group of adventurers stumbling upon an ancient artifact that holds great power. The characters may not fully comprehend its significance, but the players, with their meta-knowledge, can appreciate the gravity of the situation. They might approach it cautiously, debating the best course of action, aware of the potential consequences, and their excitement and their curiosity are heightened as they know this is a pivotal moment in the story, even if the characters don't. And honestly, on the flip side, without meta knowledge, the players may overlook important details and underestimate threats and miss out on opportunities that were already there in front of them. The narrative impact might be diluted and the story's potential diminished because metagaming, when used judiciously, allows the players to immerse themselves fully into the world, drawing from their own knowledge and experiences in order to enrich the gameplay that's already there. Of course, I will admit there is a fine line to tread here. Metagaming should enhance an experience, but not overshadow it. And it shouldn't lead to unfair advantages. As a game master, it's important to strike a balance, providing enough information to empower the players without spoon-feeding them everything. You want to foster engagement, of course, and you want the players to have agency, but you still want to allow room for surprises and discovery, and metagaming can get in the way of that. So honestly, Critical Role's Tears of the Kingdom one-shot demonstrated the beauty of metagaming, within a familiar world, at least. The players' deep knowledge of the Legend of Zelda universe allowed them to dive headfirst into the adventure, bringing their enthusiasm and creativity to the table. They embraced the setting, the characters, and the mechanics with a level of investment that, honestly, I think just kind of elevated the game. I do want to make it clear, I'm not advocating for using meta knowledge all of the time, but I do think a lot of the game masters in the world can really miss out on the fact that some of the most important parts of investing in the story and the world require meta knowledge. To know what is important, to know what has gravity to the current scenario, sometimes meta knowledge is necessary. And honestly, what sort of stuff the game master has planned that they believe the players will be most excited by is the most important portion. It's easy to forget that TTRPGs are a unique storytelling device because of these unique quirks. The discussion above the table, the knowledge of the source of material used, and the excitement of recognizing something that is happening in game, it's worth getting excited about when you have the meta knowledge of it, but only when it's done respectfully and with tact. Without that, you can seriously put yourself in a very dangerous situation of harming your game. So honestly, metagaming can be an incredibly valuable tool in TTRPGs when used appropriately. The familiarity and knowledge that players bring from outside the game can enhance their immersion and investment in the story. So remember that. Remember that TTRPGs are unique storytelling devices, where the discussion above table and the knowledge of the source of the material can sometimes bring more excitement to the game than anything else could. TTRPGs allow this strange amount of excitement because of meta knowledge that other mediums don't allow you to add into stories. And it's incredible and extremely fun, but always make sure to approach it in the correct ways. So make sure to enjoy that. Have a good time and invest in your games in the most that you would want to. So thanks for joining me on this adventure, friends. And honestly, before you go, I really want to be able to give you more Tears of the Kingdom content because I think the game's incredible, but it just doesn't really have a place on this channel, which does lead to my other channel. I'm releasing the first full-length video on there where I go through my entire experience with the first portion of the game, and I tell the story of how I actually learned to accept failure, overcome it, and learn from it, which I do think is a huge theme with this channel, so hopefully it translates well over there. If you want to go check it out, you can check the links in the description and give support over there, but anyways, thank you so much. Go out into the world, make it your own.